There are many ways, as there are also many ways. There are many ways as there are also many skills needed in testing. No one has all of those skills to start with, regardless of your background, but you can somehow develop all of those skills, or many of those skills. In this session, we have the 2021 Eurostar Testing Excellence Award winner and Tester of the Year in Finland, Dragons Out author and CEO Kari Kakkonen. Please join me as we welcome this amazing speaker in answering one question: how to develop a multi-talented tester.
Great, thank you. I'm glad to be here. It's a great conference, lots of great talks. I hope to add to that symphony of great talks with this one. So how to become a multi-talented tester, that's the topic. So I've been talking about this earlier, as you can note it from here as well, but let's move on. I'm a man of many hats. That's what I say, and you can see many things. So thanks for the introduction. I appreciate all those awards lately. I think they are a lot because of this children's book, Dragons Out, about testing, big initiative. But I'm also working at Knowit, big, almost 4,000 people company in ICT in Nordic countries. Obviously, I've been in ICTQB for a long time, 6 years in the exec. And currently I'm in a board of directors of TMMI, also a global test association, to do with improvement of testing in Agile and DevOps, which are my favorites. So man of many hats, I could say I am multi-talented. I think I am. So I think I can help you also to become multi-talented. So let's go there. So I'm going to build this up by talking about skills in testing, and then we go into backgrounds of testing, and then how to go into testing, and then once you are within testing, how to then develop your skills to be multi-talented. So in other words, have many skills. And I'll also share my journey to be also multi-talented, and some tips in the end. And of course, questions are always great. So if you got any, just put them out in the chat like it's been advised. So what is then multi-talented tester? And what is it to be multi-talented? Well, it is about knowing many things, and by knowing these many things, being able to do many things. So you can do many things. And you could also say that a multi-talented tester is in balance. So a person like that is not only using one part of his or her brain or one set of skills, rather using many different skills that together bring out the best. So I think that's how I define being multi-talented. So why would you want to be multi-talented? One thing is that the jobs in the market are all the time becoming more demanding. Even if you feel very secure in your job right now, it could be that in some years, some new technologies, some new domains, some new testing skills have come up, and you actually realize you need to know more to have a good job. So you can play safe by adding to your skills all the time, and you'll have a job also in 10 years. That's my nice message there. On the other hand, by having lots of talents, lots of skills, being multi-talented, you help your company, your team, your organization, wherever you are working, in the best way. Person who is only using a small portion of his or her brain is not the best kind of person. Rather, everybody wants to have the people who can do anything, right? Obviously, such people don't really exist, but everybody has many skills. So let's talk about the skills. So often you see this sort of a picture where the skills needed by tester are consisting of 4 different things, 4 cornerstones. So you need testing skills, you need technology skills, you need domain skills, you need people skills. So domain skills means that you have worked on many business domains. So for example, public sector or the defense or the finance sector. Testing skills could be anything to do with testing itself. It could be exploratory testing or test automation or test design, for example. Tech skills could be anything to do with the technology that's been used to develop software under test, and also any technology that you use for your testing, so particularly test automation. And finally, the people skills means that you need to be able to get along with people. It's as simple as that. So it's about trust and motivation and listening to people. So lots of things. But I'd like to also add that there is a wild card, a secret part in the recipe, and that would be, and in my view, it is very often another IT role. So if you also are proficient in something else within IT, so for example, Scrum Master or being a main user of some system, that actually complements very nicely you being a tester. So if you can combine these things, find another role that fits into your testing role, you'll be so much better. So think about those. So we'll go through those different areas of tester skills one by one. Here's the testing skills. It's actually a few slides, so we start from here. I like to say that understanding how much should I test in whatever way, that's one part of your skill. So it could be about testing coverage techniques, it could be heuristics, testing techniques, test design techniques, whatever. That gives you the answer of how much do I need to test so that I have the coverage, I have covered the risks, I have covered the priorities as much as I need. Another one is what, so understanding in what kind of ways and where and in which part of a lifecycle process can you test. And again, it could be any names depending on what kind of a testing you are doing. It could be acceptance testing, it could be your agile testing quadrants, it could be your system test level. Understanding the levels. How is another part, and this is the actual how do I go into the software, find information, find defects, and so it could be exploring or checking or test automation or anything like that. And the next part is when. So, and that means understanding when should I test to have most impact into my software development team's work. Early, usually people say early is good, but what does it mean? So where exactly in an agile process, where do I test? All the time or at some point only? But there's also a why. You maybe noticed that the big question was missing from the four points in the previous slide. So why is in the end even the most important skill? Understanding where do I fit with my testing? Why do I test? Which areas of a product do I test more? Are there some particular areas in the product that are more important than others? So understand the product, understand how testing fits into the big picture of creating a product, creating the customer value, and then why do we test when you understand that as well. So why is a good skill. Here I've also bundled some attitude factors, which people usually talk about along with the skills. I also do it very often. On my courses, I very often talk about the attitude, what makes a good tester. And we often have a brainstorm and we put sticky notes on the wall and then we put priorities on them. And very often the list is something like this. And this is my favorite list with 6 points. So a good tester is curious, so looks for different things. At the same time, it's also systematic, which some people might think is opposing the curious, but I think they fit together very nicely. You need also patience because some things will be slow and you need to go through lots of things. You need to have courage. Courage is the courage of spending time on something that somebody else might not agree on, understanding the priorities in your own way. Learning, you always need to be learning, and then holistic thinking. Don't think about one detail only, think about, again, the big picture. Where do you fit? Where does your testing fit? So those are important parts. So let's talk about domain skills. Here, the point I'd like to make is that even for the business domains where testers work are different, they are still also similar. So some of the domains are closer to each other than some other domains. So for example, the operator domain, telecoms operator domain there is actually fairly similar to network technology domain, and also fairly similar to public sector, which is all about information systems. So some sectors are closer than others. So if you are thinking of creating multi-talent talent to your skill set, you could take some business domain that is as far as possible from what you already have. So if you are working on operator domain, why don't you take banking domain or whatever you think is more far from your current domain? Or if that step is too big, why don't you choose a domain that has some characteristics that are very similar to your current domain? So like in this picture, if you're an operator domain, why didn't you next try public sector? So it may be an easier step. Anyway, you want to have multiple domains in your skill set. Technology skills, similar thing. Obviously, you can know lots of technologies. For testers, it's really useful to know the technologies that your developers are using. So what kind of technology is your SUT, your software under test, built of? But also, obviously, test automation solution is especially, or any testing tools are required to know. And the world is full of technologies. You shouldn't shy away from technologies. Coding is a good skill for a tester as well, even if you don't code daily. But if you do test automation, that is actually very close to coding. That is coding, depending on what tool you use for. The big picture in technology skills is that once you start learning one technology, the next technology that is in a similar group will be a lot easier, and a third one will be very fast to learn. So even if it might seem at the start of your career that there are so many technologies in the world, it's only that many categories of technologies. So don't worry, just get to the next and the second and the third technology, and you'll be fine. People skills part is about leadership, about leading your own work, facilitating everybody else's work, energizing people, empowering people, things like that. So leadership, definitely useful for testers, even if you are not a leader or manager. Communication, very important. It's all about communicating to other people within the team, outside of the team, stakeholders, all that. Reporting, letting people know what you found. If you found something and you don't tell people, or you tell people in the wrong way, this is what I found, it doesn't help. You need to explain your information in a way that everybody understands, and then you can make a change and the impact on the software, and the software can become better. And obviously talking, you need to be talkative. You can't just sit in a corner with your own computer. It doesn't work for a tester. And the fifth cornerstone, so what kind of roles support the tester role? So what I've seen in lots of the companies and customers that I've seen over the years, and in our own teams that know it where I work, business role is actually a good one. You can have a business responsibility. PO role, product owner role, is similar, of course. You could also use that, be in that role, giving priorities to what to develop if you know about the business, but it works. You could be also a scrum master or some other kind of coach role that facilitates things happening with the team. Doesn't need to be testing only, but anything with the team. So that fits very often with tester role. You could be a user of the same software, depending where you come from. And obviously, you could be also a developer. So developers test, we all know that. But you could also be full-time developer and full-time tester, or maybe it's half-time developer, half-time tester after all, but you can do it. So it's just changing hats and trying to understand what consists, what your roles consists of. So anyway, I'll let that sink in, and you can think about what kind of role could add to your tester role. Let's talk about the backgrounds a little bit. So obviously the testers come from different backgrounds. It's not only IT studies, even for that's maybe the traditional route. Many people come to testing by learning IT or tech or development, coding as a hobby. I also see lots of people who have done some other university degree and then they kind of migrated into testing. But also you could have any other profession as your background. Anything goes. You can learn testing. It might take time, but you can learn testing with any background. And that takes us to backgrounds. So when you're looking for a tester for a particular new technology, new software in a new domain, you could take a tester from another background. You could take a business rep. You could take a main user or a programmer, also very common. You could take somebody outside of IT and just train a person enough to testing. Or you could take people straight from university and teach them testing skills. So different backgrounds are actually useful. They can add to the multi-talentness. Obviously, if you are already one of those backgrounds, it doesn't help. You have your background and then you have to live with that. But if you are a bigger company and you want to find people into your team who come from different backgrounds, why don't you take somebody straight from university and somebody who's been in the field of testing for 20 years and see how diverse that team becomes and how much more testing ideas that team will have. Routes to testing. So how do you then become a tester with your background, so whatever? Education at the job. So when you join a company who does testing, often the induction programs are quite good in giving some testing insight. This is how we do testing in our company. Something I've seen working very well, and I also try to find mentors to me as well who know something about a new topic to me. So find a mentor, pair with a senior. That's a good way to learn some new testing skill. There are tester programs. So some companies, including our company, trains testers through multiple courses, multiple exercises, lots of learning at the job, applying those new skills. So a tester program is actually a great way to become a tester. When you have also complementary programs, and to make a difference to the previous one, this is sort of filling the gaps. So if you look at a tester and you look at what's needed to be a tester in a particular team, you can notice maybe a few gaps in knowledge or maybe some tool skills. And then you can teach these additional topics, and then you have your ideal tester. And also, I'd like to mention that learning never stops. You need to learn more testing all the time, more things every year. So it's about career path, learning things all the time. A specific slide about the transformations. So if you take somebody who is not yet at the testing job, but you want to make somebody a tester, first-time tester, I find transformation programs are actually really good. So don't just take somebody into work, but see if there's some program where you could transform somebody like a developer into a tester. Or you could take a personal trainer or shop assistant and make that person a tester. So from other profession to tester. I also see lots of women transformation programs. There's a great program called Mimmit Kooda, Women Code in Finland that attracts tens of thousands of women to take the step and jump into IT, coding and testing and anything with that. And so these are also great programs. And there are IT studies enhancing programs, because if you go to universities, lots of universities actually educate coders. Not very much testing skills taught there. And so if you want to make somebody fresh from university to be a tester, you probably need to add some testing skills there. So that's also fun. And then finally, there's unemployment programs, very much kind of a diverse idea, but it works very nicely. People who are, for one reason or another, unemployed, they still might have lots of potential, amazing potential to be very good testers. You just need to educate them in a number of testing topics. So these are good ideas that I've seen working very, very nicely. And I've been training in these kind of programs, so I know they work very well. So now we have testers from different backgrounds, and they already know many things, of course, but then how to really become multi-talented. So when you are already within testing and you know something, if you look at your CV, you have this and that skill, and you've been to this and that domain, etc. So how to do it? My view there is that I like to think through roles. So is there another role in another team that I could take? What would it mean for me? I could be a tester. I want to be an exploratory tester, for example. So I would need to learn exploratory testing. Or maybe I worked in finance domain, and maybe I would just use my exploratory testing skills and do the same thing in another domain. Let's go to public sector. Or maybe I was doing test automation with Selenium. Let's take another technology. Let's take robot framework and learn that and use it in the same project or same team. Or maybe I was a manual tester and maybe I just now want to take test automation and still stay in the same domain and same team. So you notice I'm trying to say that don't change everything in one go. Change one thing. Well, you could change everything, but it's a lot harder. So my advice is that change one thing. The next row there is some specializations into different testing topics. I see lots of people becoming, for example, security testers, even when they started as your regular functional testers or things like that. So you could go that path. You could become a coach. So decide that instead of only testing yourself, why don't I help others to test? And that would be coaching. Or you could do the similar thing, but go into a training and train people, run courses and do it in a little bit more structured way, maybe. You could be a speaker or author and write books. Again, they would be different roles that, add to your number of roles and talents. And the row there on the bottom are a little bit those additional roles, that fifth cornerstone that you remember from earlier. So I could become a Scrum PO, for example, a product owner in a Scrum project. And I could do that job along with my tested job. I see many people do it. It actually works surprisingly well, even though you usually think that a PO job is a job for somebody from business and not from testing. But I've seen it work. Give it a try. I have to say, Scrum Master job goes very much or more often with a tested job also. Anyway, give it a try. I don't think there are limits. You can add to your roles, see what you would like to be, what do you need to learn to be in that role too, and then you have more talents. So basically, you need to learn things that help to be in your new role, whatever you want to be. Try to see what kind of courses are there, what kind of learning can you get from your mentors, etc. Things we covered in the learning at the job part. But not only that, I would say also choose something that you're interested in, because if you are only doing something that your company says that you should do, this is what we do, we make everybody a Scrum Master, not only a tester. That's not a good reason to do it. You are not going to like it. Well, you might like it, but not as much as if you have the spark, the energy to do it that comes from within you. So you need to like it, and then it will be good and you'll be better at it. So even if it looks like there are lots of opportunities, pick ones that you like. So learn more. So in the end, we started by discussing what is a multi-talented tester or what is multi-talent in general. And then now we talk about roles. So is there a number of roles? Like, I have now 4 roles. Am I now multi-talented? Not really. There's not a specific number. Rather, it's not black or white. It's lots of shades of gray. So the more roles, meaning also the more skills you have, the more you are multi-talented. So just add to your roles, and well, at some point, I think you start feeling multi-talented. Most people start with one job and one role only, and at that point, I don't think anybody feels multi-talented. But after a while, you start feeling multi-talented. And here I want to encourage you. I think everybody already is multi-talented, but you might be using just a portion of your skills because that's what your team happened to ask for, or your boss said, like, do this. But you probably know already lots of different things. And if you try to look for a way to use all those skills in your current team, you can be multi-talented. I think you are already multi-talented. So good for you, good for us. We are all multi-talented. But let's try to be even more multi-talented and keep learning. That's the big thing. So let's take a look at my journey. I think I am multi-talented, so maybe telling my story will help. I understand it. So my journey here is 25 years long. I started my testing career as a test automation tool specialist and salesperson, and also pre-sales person. It was a very small company, like 15 people. So anybody with given topic did anything with that area, and my area was test automation tools, so I learned everything around it, including with sales and pre-sales, which are not your typical testing tasks maybe, but I also got to be very good with this particular test automation tool, which was SQA Robot. It was very interesting. It got me into testing. I soon realized that I actually want to train people about this stuff, so I started to be trainer on the test automation tools, and very soon also trainer on testing in general. It was the next step, just expanding bit by bit. A bigger change was changing company, and then I became a testing consultant, and I started not doing sales mostly, but doing consultancy mostly. So talking to customers, staying at customer sites, working with the customer, being in the customer teams, explaining things to them, doing actual testing. I also did test assessments, so trying to understand what's good and what's bad in the testing of a project or a team or an organization. I was a test manager for multiple testers. I also improved testing processes very often after doing test assessments, but sometimes also without them. As a natural thing, you have retrospectives and you get ideas to test, to improve testing, and then you improve testing. So I did a number of those things. And I also ran departments of testing, so that's test director. I was a director of testing. And then I became interested in agile and coaching, and also DevOps and coaching and training, that stuff as well. So that sort of built up there as well. And then AI was there, and I also got interested in that and started learning that. Kind of a bigger step compared to lots of those previous steps. And then I wanted to be an author as well, and I started writing books about testing. So I think I've taken actually most of the steps that are mentioned in the previous slides. But you can also see some undercurrents there. I was first a little bit in sales kind of jobs. Then I did more consultant jobs, was part of teams, was specifically doing testing. And then at some point I started feeling, let's say, very senior. I felt I could give even more to teams and to organizations. So I sort of switched into a bigger picture coaching, authoring as well, things like that. So I think these are bigger undercurrents. And if you can identify undercurrents like this in your own career, maybe you can see already what will be your next undercurrent, the next theme of your development into a multi-talented tester. Right, so final thing is tips. Continuous learning. In many ways, I would recommend reading lots of books. I like to read books, so that's why I recommend them. But I think they are also the easy way to learn a lot. You can read a book, you can listen to an audiobook, you can read an ebook on your mobile phone, whatever. It's very easy. And don't read only testing books. Read anything that has to do with IT industry, and that will be agile and DevOps and leadership, change management, etc. I tend to keep a Goodreads shortlist on my own. So what I want to read next, or in the next few years, the list is already very long. I would recommend keeping something like that. Goodreads is a good place to keep that. Another aspect is that you should add to your CV all the time. So try to think, what can I add to my CV this year? So what can I learn that can be such a complete learning experience, a new skill, a new role added, that I can add it to my CV as well. So you notice that if you do continuously small learning, like I read one book, maybe that doesn't go into a CV, but if you learned a lot more, maybe you can add a new thing in your CV as well. So keep that in mind. I think it's a good tool to keep learning. Then I like to have visions or scenarios, you could also say. So I would recommend thinking about what could you be in 5 years or 10 years? What is the vision of yourself in 10 years? In what role? What kind of testing skills? Within testing or near testing, even outside testing, of course. You never know where you go. But have these alternative visions or scenarios, and then you realize that, okay, I could be any of those. Then think about intermediate steps. What steps can I take this year to be that person in 10 years? And don't only go on one route. Think about alternative futures, so you have choice over years, because people change their minds. It's good to play safe and have lots of skills, be really multi-talent, so you can actually maybe be all of them in 10 years. Try new things. Don't be afraid. You could fail, that's fine. Then you learn and you try again. That's the attitude that you need to have. And while you do it, you get feedback. So you can even consciously try to get feedback. Ask from others, how can I do better? What can I do to be better? And finally, be friendly. Be friendly to others, because if you are friendly, if you smile, you'll be smiled at. If you give a favor comes back to you, and you learn easier when people help you. So smile. And that's it. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
From our side, we don't have any questions, but we would like to thank you for being our very last speaker of the evening, and for giving us an insightful presentation on how individuals can continuously develop their personal skills into becoming multi-talented testers. Thank you so much for your presentation, and we look forward to having you at the next A4Q Testing Summit. Tune in and catch all of our videos from today on our social media platforms, Skills Club, and presentations will be available on Skills Club. Thank you so much.
Thank you.